There's nothing for us. We didn't play a game, so guys took the weekend off, and we brought them back and practiced for an hour last night. So whenever you want to fire questions, I'm ready to go.
What do you feel like you've accomplished in the week off?
Oh, I would say rest. We didn't practice enough to talk about. Took some time off and worked on the last two games that Baylor's played, and got them back last night, and hopefully back into a normal routine and day off today and get them back tomorrow for a heavy practice.
Mike, especially on offense, really the last two games is kind of what you have to look at. I mean, they changed with the change in quarterback pretty much, didn't they?
Yeah, we haven't paid any attention to the first three games. The last two is our breakdowns, and I'm fairly certain that's kind of who they are with the direction they're going offensively. And then with the number of suspensions and such that they had, that's just my opinion. You can pretty much throw the first three games away.
Mike, there's several weeks ago you started talking about parity in this league. And I have to tell you, I was a skeptic and I thought you were just doing coach speak, but it's starting to show up. What was it that made you see that parity early on?
Well, first, I told you guys a year ago that I would stop with coaches talk. I'm way too old for coaches talk. It may get me in trouble at times, but the quarterback play in this league is created parity more so than ever. Whether it's a running style quarterback, which gives you a half a person advantage in the running game, and then if you use a running style quarterback on an RPO, essentially you have a full player advantage offensively. And we have good quarterback play in this league. And then if there is inexperience, we have teams in this league that are running their quarterbacks, which can create an issue for defenses. So when I sit back and looked at the league and maturity and players lost, I felt like there'd be more teams this year that could beat each other on any given Saturday based on lack of preparation, emotionally by your football team. That's what I struggle with as a coach, and we as a staff, is trying to get our players ready to play every week. If not, you're vulnerable. And then if you're playing teams where athletically you're close, a turnover here, a turnover there, an injury here, an injury there, better quarterback play on one side than the other, then you're vulnerable to lose a game. That's just the way it is, in my opinion.
You guys have had a few injuries, offensive line, some different places. Has that kind of, what your margin for error is, but it doesn't help your margin for error when you lose?
We don't have a lot of margin for error right now. There's teams, other teams get beat up a little bit. It's part of college football. The two things that I think can sway a game in this league would be turnovers, special teams play. I guess I should say four things: injuries and quarterback play right now with what the teams that are in this conference. And so you have to manage your injuries and try to come up with a plan based on what gives us the best chance for success. It may not be what we can draw on a board, but it may be what we can execute on Saturday.
In the big picture, college football playoff, is parity bad for the Big 12 then?
Well, it's easier to get into the playoff if you're undefeated. We all know that. And then how the committee sees our league this year will be different, in my opinion, than it has in the last few years. If Kirby's worth his salt at all, he should get that accomplished in that committee. But when you hit me with that question, I hadn't thought about that like I have other things, just based on we have our hands full preparing for this game Saturday based on what we're trying to accomplish. And I hadn't got that far down the line, which I usually don't until the middle of November anyway.
Teams are beating up on each other every week.
And they're going to in this league. This is going to continue on. And so in my history and being in this game for 30 years It's going to be about whether you can keep them focused and prepared during the week, and then get the right ones healthy and get good special teams play and good quarterback play on Saturdays.
What do you know, or what do you feel like you know from Matt Rule? He's one of the new coaches in the league. You know, been probably to coaches meetings with him. What do you think?
Matt doesn't say a lot in the meetings. He didn't this year. I had watched him from a distance. He obviously has done very well for himself, and had a history of winning in an amount of time that he had. And so he's obviously a very capable coach, or the administration down there wouldn't have brought him in. But I just don't know a lot about him. He was, from a removed area for me in the world that we live in recruiting.
What's your confidence level in Matt Amendola after his struggles with the short field goals in Lubbock?
I think Matt will be fine. He's a young player. It's his first year. I'm fairly certain that he's identified what the issues were. I think they're very correctable. We have confidence in him. We're going to send him out there. And that's just part of it. It's the life you live as a kicker. We've had kickers through here early in their career that we were concerned about, and then as they matured, like any other position, they got a little bit better, and that's what we expect Matt to accomplish as the season moves forward.
You said you're too old for coach speak, but apparently Nick Saban isn't. Did you hear his comments about the media after their A&M game, where he called everything the media says about his team poison?
I did not hear it. When my computer comes on in my office, it goes up to Danielle, my assistant, has it on some website. I don't know what it is, and there's news all over it. And so I saw it, so I clicked on it, and I got into it for about a paragraph. And I think part of what he's saying is true from a standpoint. I just read one paragraph, and there was like 6 paragraphs, and I got off of it. But I got no idea what he's thinking or what he's saying. But what I get out of what he's saying that fits to what I do is this: if you read and listen to enough things out there, and it affects your preparation during the week, essentially you've been poisoned and you get a chance to get really sick. And that sickness was what I'm thinking is you can lose if you don't watch it. That's probably what he's referring to. Hard for me to justify having any evidence that that's what he's thinking, but I understand what he's thinking. We talk about it in here all the time. You can't hide these players from social media. You can't hide them from exposure, from what's going on out there. We would like to shelter them from that, but we can't. We can only hope that they understand the importance of preparation and not what somebody's saying about them outside of the program, good or bad.
Mike, as a coach, you have to learn that about yourself.
Sure. Yeah, it's all of us. I mean, after the Pittsburgh game, I said to you guys, you have to be a little bit hesitant about what you buy into, because I was told by a guy one day they'll name a street after you downtown and then they'll run you down it the next day. I think that's kind of the way sports is, which is fine. It's okay. But we all have to look at what's important, and again, for us here, it's preparation.
Was there a time earlier in your career where you had to wean yourself off of what was written or said about you?
Sure. And there'll probably be a time in my career later. It'll be the same way. I'm not so out of touch with reality to think that if things don't go well, then it can turn a full 360 and I can become a coach that people doubt again. That's just the world we live in sports. I mean, I'm okay with that. That's why I work hard at farming. I'm good at farming. John Smith and I are really good at what we do, and I may have to do it again someday, but what you're saying is correct. That's just the way it is. People are not very patient, and they want success, and they want to win right now, and they want to win all the time. Here at Oklahoma State, we've essentially created a monster over the last 6 to 8 years, and so now you have to feed it, and you feed it by playing well and winning games. We believe in a lot of things outside of that, but I don't necessarily know the public buys into that part of it. It's the way it is.
In terms of your off week and giving them the weekend off, that's nothing new really for you, is it? I mean, or does it change depending on your team?
We do vary it some, John, depending on our team. But the week that we had, was fairly consistent than what we've done the last couple years.
You talk about Justice Hill and his increased workload the last couple of games. I mean, is that because he was doing so well, or not as much confidence in the other guys, or a combination of both? Or
Well, it's not a lack of confidence. It's just Justice is playing really well, and if we feel like that he's not fatigued, then we need him in the game because we think that he can change a game right now in his career. Would I like to limit his carries? Sure. Do I have confidence in JD? Yes. Is JD the runner that Justice is now? No. So a combination of all that has gotten him in a few more carries than what I would be comfortable with at this time.
Well, last year Hill had 2 fumbles against Baylor. Could you have foreseen him having the workload he has now at that point?
No. I did not expect him to finish last year like he did after the first 3 or 4 games, just based on he was young. He's a freshman. He weighed 175 pounds. But he is very mature for his age. He is very intelligent, and so he was able to overcome all the outside things like we talked about earlier and focus on playing the game. And he's developed into a pretty good college running back. So he's come further than what I would have thought in 1 calendar year.
Mike, you talk again about being too old for coach speak, and I'm not saying you weren't doing this in your younger days.
I did a lot of it in my younger days.
It wasn't, well, not the coach speak, but the unpublicized acts, and I know Zach caught something on social media about a young kid and his dad in Lawton that you kind of, put your arm around last Friday night when you were down there watching your son. You're active in the military announcements here. Mm-hmm. You do a lot of things I know off the field. Where's that come from? I mean, there's not a lot of time in a coach's day, but it's almost like you're branching out even more, although I'm sure you did this when you were younger too. I don't know.
Well, not near as much because I wasn't very smart. I'm still not real smart, but I'm smarter than I was 6-8 years ago in doing what I do now. I understand the importance of developing young men. We want to win games, but a culture that we have in place now that we feel like is going to breed and continue to put out successful young men in society. And so in order for them to feel like they're responsible in order to or to back up what I do, meaning that if I do it, then they say, okay, coach says to do it and he's doing it. And that was a very unusual situation that happened down there. I don't want to go into a lot of detail just based on to kind of protect the young man. But he had a very unfortunate situation in his life, and so for whatever reason he came up to me and we discussed it, and I had a soft spot in my heart for him for what he went through. And I think that's human nature. That's part of the issues that we're having in this country right now is people don't understand taking care of other people. So I'm obligated to do that based on him wanting to visit with me. And so that's how that happened. But we're going to stay in touch with the young man. He's got my email, and we're going to try to get him involved in our program a little bit, just from a life standpoint, regardless of football.
Back to Justice for a second. Can you just comment on how his gaining extra weight and putting on extra weight during the off season, has that helped his durability
Sure.
to handle those?
Sure. He's 15 pounds heavier or so, give or take, and he's a year older. And, as you all know, that, physically the male body never really develops until you're 28 years old. 26 to 28 is when the male body quits developing. As most of the women in this country know, for men, brain, they never mature mentally till they're probably 50. But he should get stronger. He should get faster, more mature every year. And we're lucky to have him. The thing that we have going with Justice and really the majority of our players that are guys that are recognized more, they're very humble. I mean, you won't ever hear him say a word. If you don't go talk to Justice, he's not going to talk because he's just a really quiet kid. He's had a great upbringing, got a great mom and daddy, and it's easy to coach a kid like that. And he's just worked himself into being a good football player.
Coach Gundy, this is kind of an excellent question. I understand what happens when Rudolph play fakes, they fight onto that, he goes in untouched, but how does that affect what happens to the defense going forward? How does that become an advantage to the Cowboys?
You know, as I mentioned earlier, if you run your quarterback, in our opinion, you get a half-man advantage. And if you RPO with your quarterback, run pass options, you almost get a full-man advantage. So defense all has gaps, and there's enough people to cover every gap. And the backside player in all the game, the style of play that we're familiar with in offense nowadays, you know, he has to collapse down, and he's the backside player. He's the cutback guy. And if he stays wide and plays the quarterback, then you see guys run and cut back, and everybody wants to know what happened. Well, that guy's playing the quarterback, or playing years ago the reverse, right? The old end around. And it's the same philosophy. And so we don't like to do it a lot, just that we want to protect Mason as much as possible. But there are times when he has to do it if we're going to get chased down from the backside. And you'll see that happen. You guys watch our games close, so when you're sitting up here drinking whatever you drink while you're watching us play, and you see us getting run down from the backside, you can tell whoever you're with, they're probably going to have Mason keep it really soon. And then everybody will think, damn, that guy's pretty smart. I thought he was just a sports writer. And that's really how it happens. Pretty simple. Pretty simple.
Mike, DQ Osborne's kind of filled a big hole for you guys this year with his production, and he's a guy who was committed to Baylor. Really, you guys brought him in late. What do you remember about that process of getting him here last summer?
They put his information on my desk. I can't remember, May or something, a year ago, and got the story on everything going on. And so we did our research and talked to the people back home, and really liked him, not only as a player, but when we did a lot of research on him, we felt like that he was a quality young man, and that he would be good for our culture. And so we decided to bring him in, and since then he's been terrific. He's another guy you hardly hear. He never says a word. Never hear him talk, and he's worked hard. He's been a really good football player. You know, it's interesting that obviously we have a lot of NFL people that come around this year because of certain players on our team that you guys know about that could potentially be high round picks. So you get a number of NFL people coming in, and they all ask about him. And you know, if you looked at him or saw him a year ago, you wouldn't think that would be something that any NFL team would ask about, but they all ask about him because of his ability to get under blocks, and he's quick, and he can make a play, and he plays really hard.
Tyrone Johnson hasn't gotten very many opportunities since his suspension. Is he at where you want him to be so far?
Yeah, he's gonna. His time will be increased more as we go. Him not touching the ball really didn't have anything to do with the suspension. Here, whenever we have a guy that's suspended, when he serves his time, then he has a clean slate. We don't hold a grudge. And it was just based on some of the looks that we saw. And James was in the Tech game a lot. Probably 20 more plays than he should have been, but we kind of fell into the same issue that we did with Hill. And he was fairly fresh, and he was making plays, and so we just didn't get that rotation. But he should be in the game more, and we have faith in him to make plays.
Coach, your offense moved the ball at will against Texas Tech, but struggled in some goal-to-go situations. Will that be more of an emphasis this week in your preparation than it would be had you punched those into the end zone?
Yeah, part of that was David made some really good calls defensively for them, David Gibbs. And then we had a couple plays we didn't execute very good. So that's an issue that we have to try to manage the best we can. There's only so many things that you can do. That we just visited a little bit about Mason keeping the ball. There's different things. It becomes a numbers game and a space game. The corners and safeties don't have to back up as much anymore because they know there's an inline back there. Doesn't count if you catch it, so they're kind of condensed. But we're not a great power football team. That's not something we do. So we're certainly aware of it, and we've taken note, and hopefully we'll be better. We have to score more touchdowns down in there if we're going to win these games than kick field goals, as you know.
Sometimes you guys do, you take situations like that are issues and brainstorm. Not talking through this situation, you probably don't want to give anything out, but when that goes into process, how does that process work? Where you, okay, let's brainstorm this situation, come up with some solutions.
Like any other area for us, first you have to identify what the problem is, and then you have to find out why it was a problem. Then you come up with 3 or 4 solutions to those issues, and then you find which one of those fit best on your personnel and who we are and who we're playing. You pick 2 or 3 of them, and you work those, and then you live with them, and then on Saturday you call it, and you go with it. So it starts with identifying what the issues were, and then you go through that format, and then you live with it going down the road.
I mean, from a staff situation, everybody contributing, is that one of the more, I hate to say it, I mean, one of the more fun situations is to brainstorm?
Yeah. It's funny you bring that up. I visited with Coach Miles a week ago, and we had a nice visit, Les Miles, and
Got a good podcast, by the way.
yeah, I've never seen any of that. I don't know how to get to all that, but he and I had a nice conversation on the phone for about an hour the other day, and the time that I was offense coordinator for him, he was famous for, I called all the plays, but once we got in the 5-yard line, he'd get on the phones. He'd say, I got it from here. I'm good. He loved to take over on the goal line because of his history at Michigan with 2 tight ends, 3 tight ends, fullbacks, and all that. And we were joking about the other day because we went in the staff room and the conversation was brought up, just like the question I was asked. Hey, this is the problem. What's the solutions? Well, everybody had input. There's 10 guys in that room with all the young coaches, and everybody wants to have input when you're on the 3-yard line. And you don't get a lot of input when it's 3rd and 12 on the 30. Okay? So, yes, everybody's adding what they think we need to do.
You think his podcasting, he's like upgraded his technological game and he's all behind that, or you think he's got a little bit of both?
I haven't seen it, but I'm gonna guess that he doesn't have anything to do with the technology for a podcast. He told me he flies to Chicago on Mondays and then flies to a location on Thursday. So he's busier now than he was as a head coach. So, and I asked him, I said, have you thought about trying farming? It's a much better offer, much better gig than that. So, but anyway, he loves to work and is going to coach again, wants to coach again, really wants to coach again bad. So,
How much of OU Iowa State did you catch?
hardly any.
Really?
Yeah, I saw the like 4 or 5 plays of the drive they scored on. Did not see the end of it. I saw the early part because it was about a 12-play drive, and then somebody got me off doing something else, and I turned around and then I saw him throw a touchdown pass, and then somebody flipped it over to something else. I don't know what it was, some other game or something, and then somebody had said they lost. So I didn't see the last drive really.
I was going to ask you about Lanny. He spends the whole game middle linebacker.
It's awesome.
And then double-digit tackles, sacks Mayfield at one point, then turns around and takes direction.
I saw the stat, and if it wasn't tied into the Bedlam, I would have. I'm not a big social media guy, but I would have. I wanted just to commend the kid for what he did. I don't care if he played the Giants. It'll make a difference who he played. To play linebacker and get 8 tackles, I saw the stat. I think 8 tackles, right? And then play quarterback. I mean, that's a true team player, and I think that's awesome for the kid. I don't care who he plays. Played junior high, but just to be able to say, okay, I'm playing linebacker. You need me at quarterback. I'm going to play quarterback, and then I'm still going to make 8 tackles. that's pretty special. I mean, his mom and dad, they ought to be proud of him. That's pretty awesome.
Did you see your former GA, Alex Golish,
Mhm.
what he did?
Yeah, I saw that on a highlight. They do a really good job. They're really smart football coaches, and he was here with us, and he's a very, very good football coach. So, class guy.
Anything else for Coach?
Good. All right, thanks.